Death Mage 206, the starving wolf who visits the Demon King opening his food cart business. Generally speaking, humans were not considered to have any subraces. However, there were slight differences in appearance and physique between humans depending on the region in which they were born. There had apparently once been a time when those born in the north had skin as white as snow, while those born in the south had skin colors that ranged from dark brown to almost completely black, and many of those born in between had more yellow-looking skin. There had even been some differences in their musculature and internal organs. According to one theory, the descendants of the humans who lived in the south with Xantark, the war god of fire and destruction, and Botan, mother of the earth and goddess of craftsmanship, were dark-skinned. The descendants of the humans who lived to the north with Pyria, the goddess of water and knowledge, and Shizarian, the god of wind and art, were white-skinned. The descendants of the humans living with the rest of the gods were yellow-skinned.
But after the war against the demon king Gujarani's, the few humans that were left were all gathered in one place. In the process of the population growing to the size that it is now, their genes proceeded to mix. This caused their features to become more standard, to the point that the differences between them were too small to appear on their statuses. As a result, it is said, or perhaps I should say that it was said, that there are no subraces of humans.
Luciliano explained calmly.
I see. This is a different world, so it has its own different history,
said Doug with a stiff look on his face.
So why have you stripped and taken a pose?
He asked Luciliano.
Depending on your answer, I'm gonna have to punch you in the face.
Stripped, I have only taken the clothes off my upper body so far. And if you are going to punch me, I request that you do it with your fist rather than your telekinesis. Your telekinesis might kill me after all,
said Luciliano.
Since your race has changed, you're checking if there has been any change to your body,
said Melissa.
Stuff that you can't check on your status, like your skeleton, your muscle structure, the position of your internal organs, and how many organs you have.
Indeed. Melissa Kuhn's insight is very helpful,
said Luciliano. He had already recorded the changes to his status, including the fact that he had become a dark human. He was now examining his own body to see if there had been any changes that were not displayed on his status. He was not only palpating the surface of his body, but using spells to examine himself as well. Luciliano seemed restless at the fact that his own race had changed, but that seemed to be because of excitement and curiosity.
I have acquired several skills including status effect resistance, but I wish to see whether this is a racial characteristic of dark humans or whether that is due to my own individual qualities. But it would be difficult for you to answer my questions calmly, would it not? That is why I am examining my own body,
Luciliano explained. The former slave girls were even more excited than he was. Some of them had burst into tears of joy. Luciliano considered himself rather considerate for not forcefully investigating their bodies.
And yet you're half naked and standing in a questionable pose in front of those very girls that you say would be unable to answer your questions calmly,
Doug pointed out. Indeed, what Luciliano considered to be being considerate was often meaningless in the eyes of others.
It's fine as long as he keeps it limited to just his upper body. There are plenty of ghouls and titans that dress that way, after all,
said Melissa, having more pressing matters on her mind.
More importantly, has your examination told you anything more about you guys? It would be troublesome if you've become weak to sunlight or your skin gets burned by silver.
There is no way to know just yet. For now, we know that our skeletons, our organ positions and organ counts have not changed,
said Luciliano.
I am not sure about sunlight since we are underground, but silver should not be a problem. After all, it seems that Doug Kuhn's skin is not burning, even while being embraced by you while you are wearing a silver pendant.
Melissa half closed her eyes and Doug's cheeks turned red.
Considering that you were on the verge of collapse yourself, you're pretty observant,
Melissa remarked.
Indeed. I am a researcher after all,
said Luciliano.
It seems that the dwarves and beastkin have become races other than dark humans, however.
I've changed from being a wolf-type beastkin to a magic wolf-type dark beastkin. I've learned the beast transformation skill,
Said a former beastkin girl, who had grown a little more fur on her ears and tail.
We've become a race called Diverger. Some of us have turned completely black, and others have turned completely white.
Said one of the former dwarf girls.
As she said, the skin color of the former dwarves had changed. Luciliano nodded, then turned around to talk to the pseudo-main body type Demon King familiar.
Well, I shall examine them, investigate what kinds of special characteristics their races have, and then report to you later. Is that all right with you, Master?
He asked.
I don't mind. It seems that there isn't anyone whose mutation has caused their attribute values to decrease or caused any health problems. I'll take your report when Melissa returns to the city of Morksey. Also, could you please check on Nachin and Bone Man who are with Kanako and the others? Those two have absorbed the bones of the Demon King, so there might be some effects on them as well.
Said the Demon King familiar, who had been conducting its own examinations using death attribute magic.
But before that, please put some clothes on. And please make sure to not take the clothes off the bottom half of your body in front of everyone.
Meanwhile, in the Commerce Guild in the city of Morksey, Vandalu described what he had seen through the eyes of the pseudo-main body type Demon King familiar to Darsha.
I'm glad that everyone has mutated as they wanted and are still okay. I didn't expect even the beastkin to transform as well as the humans and dwarves, but since I can transform elves into chaos elves as well, the whole world can become members of Vita's races now.
Darsha said with a smile.
The dark humans and the other new races mutated as a result of drinking my blood and the effects of my bestower job, so I'm not sure you can call them Vita's races.
Said Vandalu.
That's true. But when human or dwarf reincarnated individuals want to join us in the future, you can mutate them without having to wait for them to be guided.
That would probably be quite a mental obstacle for the reincarnated individuals in and of itself.
And Vandalu, that divine protection's whole name, has finally been displayed. As expected, it's Vandalu's divine protection.
Darsha exclaimed excitedly. The divine protection, whose letters had been concealed on people's statuses. Its title was clear now, and Darsha lifted Vandalu into the air in joy.
Even though Vandalu's silence spell prevented the receptionist and other guild employees from hearing their conversation, they were startled by Darsha's attention-drawing actions.
But Darsha didn't seem to mind.
Vandalu didn't really mind either.
After all, they were already drawing attention, because they were a dark elf mother and Dampier son.
And even if they were a little eccentric, it was a small thing in the big scheme of things.
It's finally been fully revealed, I can't deny it anymore.
Said Vandalu. The truth was out, though all of Vandalu's companions, including Darsha herself, had long since realized that it was probably Vandalu's divine protection.
However, Vandalu hadn't really wanted to acknowledge this.
I'm sure it's because you acquired the bestower job. I don't think you'll be able to prevent a big statue of yourself from being built anymore.
Said Darsha. One of the reasons Vandalu hadn't wanted to acknowledge it was because he wanted to prevent Nuaza, who was essentially the leader of the Church of Vita, from erecting statues of him. Nuaza was always spending his days telling Vandalu that if he were a being equivalent to a god, capable of granting others a divine protection, then he shouldn't mind having large stone statues of himself erected.
It's not like I gave these divine protections on purpose. Of course, I'm glad that it's of use to everyone.
Vandalu added.
Vandalu-san, your paperwork has been completed. Please come to the front desk, said the receptionist, calling out to him from the desk.
Ah, yes.
Said Vandalu.
Still holding him up in the air, Darsha brought him to the front desk. The receptionist was waiting with a sad expression on her face.
This is your Commerce Guild temporary registration card. Please take care of it, as a fee will be charged for the reissuing of a new one if it is damaged or lost.
She said.
I understand.
said Vandalu.
You did it, Vandalu.
Darsha cheered happily. Acquiring a guild registration card in his hands, Vandalu let out a small breath of wonder.
Temporary registration cards were normally made of the same material as guild cards, but it did not have Vandalu's name written on it, nor did it have the function of displaying his status.
However, once he had officially passed the trial, the temporary registration card would be processed into an official guild card. And even temporary registration cards could be used as proof of one's identity, just like official guild cards.
And I'm sorry, but the location designated for your food cart is the alley on 4th East Street, between the 7-colored mist and the evening mug.
The receptionist said, looking down and apologizing as she notified Vandalu of the location for his business.
But this location was a place that Vandalu had heard of before.
4th East Street.
Vandalu repeated, setting his excitement aside, confirming the location. The receptionist gave a sympathetic look and nodded, not at Vandalu but at Darsha.
Yes, 4th East Street. There will be a penalty imposed if we learn that you have set up your food cart in any other location. We do not ordinarily accept location change requests. The guild master is away for business. He will be absent from the middle of this month until the beginning of the month after next month. Even if you appealed directly to the deputy guild masters other than Joseph-san.
From the sound of it, it seems that this 4th East Street is a very problematic location.
Chipperas, keeping himself hidden and whispering, in a voice that only Vandalu and Darsha could hear.
Perhaps a slum quarter, or a place with poor public order that guards do not patrol. I did think that it was strange for that small man to back down so quietly after Vandalu-sama refused his offer, but it seems that his harassment has already begun.
Judging from the receptionist's words, Joseph had used his authority as a deputy guild master to harass Vandalu, just to the extent where it would not yet be illegal.
Harassment that was not against the law was very troublesome.
The guards would not respond to any pleas for help, after all.
I understand how troublesome it is to be on the receiving side of it. Vandalu-sama let us brainwash him, make him our puppet, and then silence him later.
Suggested Chipperas.
No, it's not that bad. In fact, it's rather convenient.
Said Vandalu, replying through telepathy that the living could not hear.
He nodded at the receptionist and turned to walk away from the desk.
Please be careful.
Said the receptionist.
You too, ma'am. A man called the Starving Wolf Michael arrived recently and took control of the area. He's apparently a dangerous person.
Thank you. I'll be careful.
Darsha said with a smile.
It seemed that there were some faults in the quality of the deputy guild master as a human, but the receptionist was a good person, though this could have just been because Joseph did terrible things on a daily basis.
So, Vandalu, what kind of a place is this 4th East Street?
Darsha asked.
It's the entertainment district, where the base of Eleonora and the other's criminal organization is. I'm not sure where between the 7-colored mist and the evening mug is, though.
Said Vandalu. Joseph's harassment ended up being not much of a harassment for Vandalu after all. Heinz, the leader of the 5-colored blades, learned through first-hand experience just what it was like to have one's soul damaged. I don't understand.
The state I'm in, I can't tell whether the things I can't remember are because of the damage, or because I'd already forgotten them. My emotions, nothing comes out, not even guilt or sadness.
Am I being crushed by my sense of defeat? Or is it because the part of my soul that rules over my emotions is damaged? He wondered.
Your soul is different from your mind, Heinz.
Said Mill, the goddess of slumber, explaining his current state in a gentle voice.
Memories and emotions function normally only when the soul is inside the body. Your soul is currently separated from your body. Your memories and emotions are unclear partially because of that reason.
The maintenance of memories required the brain, which was a part of the body, and emotions were heavily influenced by the body as well. This was the reason that many undead had parts of their memories missing and were overwhelmed by their negative emotions. Then what kind of state am I in now that my soul is damaged? Heinz asked.
Unfortunately, I do not know,
said Mill. Heinz's thoughts froze as he heard her gentle sounding, and yet unsettling answer.
Heinz, there are things that even gods do not know. Ordinarily, those with souls as damaged as yours would not survive.
Mill continued.
Attacks from weapons made from magical metals such as orichalcum or great spells cast by elite mages could harm the soul, which was otherwise untouchable. But such an attack would be fatal to the body of the one who received it, and they would die soon afterwards. No soul had ever been separated from its physical body, with only the soul in a damaged state like Heinz's was now.
And the souls whose lives have ended return to the circle of transmigration. A very small number of them are invited by the gods to ascend to become familiar spirits, heroic spirits or subordinate gods, but any damage to their souls are repaired before their ascendancy. We do not know exactly what kind of state a human would be in when their soul is damaged but they are still alive,
said Mill.
but we can make conjectures.
Mill went on to describe these conjectures.
Decreased attribute values, lost skills, lower skill levels. Mana not recovering to its maximum amount due to the damage to the soul. And once the soul was returned to the body, there would be times where the limbs and body would become paralyzed or suddenly begin to hurt. And as expected, the loss of memories, emotions, and senses.
However, Heinz, your soul is currently receiving treatment in my divine realm. Sleeping heals people. Once this treatment is finished and you are returned to your body, you should not be plagued by any heavy symptoms,
said Mill. Though treatment would have been impossible if the soul had been broken and destroyed, Mill was a goddess whose authority was related to healing. Her treatment would heal a wounded soul.
But Heinz was not worried about himself.
But what about my companions? He asked, worried for his allies.
Jennifer and Diana have not sustained any soul damage. It seems that the Demon King made no effort to harm their souls. Deliza is also fine. Her wounds are lighter than yours,
Mill replied, giving him a brief overview of their current states.
but Edgar is in a terrible state. It is uncertain what will become of him.
Heinz was greatly agitated upon hearing the news about Edgar.
His soul was on the verge of being broken, and in ordinary circumstances, it would have been impossible to prevent his memories and personality from eroding away, causing him to become completely disabled. It would have been impossible for me to treat him,
Mill continued, explaining Edgar's state in more detail.
He is currently undergoing treatment performed by a god who rules over souls, but even if the destruction of his soul is prevented, he may not return as the same person,
She said, speaking vaguely of Rodcourt.
Ordinarily, it would not have been a good idea to instill shock in someone who was undergoing treatment. But after the wounds on Heinz's soul were repaired, he would have to fight against the Demon King, Vandalyu.
Mill could not keep his companion's state a secret. The Demon King, that damper boy Vandalyu. His hatred is directed only towards me, Deliza and Edgar. No, that's not right. In a 5-on-1 situation, he possessed enough strength and clarity of will to spare Diana and Jennifer. That's how it was, said Heinz, feeling a sense of defeat that was like a gaping hole in his chest. During the battle, Heinz and his companions had been unaware that Vandalyu was capable of breaking and devouring souls, but they had fought with all of their strength. However, Vandalyu had the reasoning capability, and most likely, a conscience that made him narrow down the targets of his revenge. This was why Heinz felt defeated.
Heinz, you are mistaken. The Demon King did indeed refrain from attacking your two companions' souls, but that was almost certainly not because the Demon King made an effort to hold his strength back against them,
said Mill. Even so, Mill, attacking their souls would not have been any burden to him, just as holding himself back wouldn't have been any burden to him either. The fact that he did not attack their souls means he really has narrowed down the targets of his revenge, said Heinz, denying Mill's words.
He went through all of his own memories that he was able to recollect, trying to remember as much about Vandalyu as possible. The way he had fought was something that no ordinary human would be able to replicate. But it was an undeniable fact that he had not attacked the souls of the two who were uninvolved with his mother's death, and that he had immediately sacrificed himself to defend his mother, even though he knew that it was a fake. Compared to that, with this, I'm not sure which of us is the Demon King, said Hines.
Hines, you are mistaken. It is true that he has some valid words and morals. However, there is no mistake that his acts will bring disorder upon the world, and that he will go on to become a calamity to all of humanity.
That Demon King, the one who made him that Demon King, is none other than me. Because I sold his mother out, he has become so grotesque, and he has become a dreadful being who destroys gods, Hines shouted, cutting Mill off.
The past incident in which Hines had received a request at the Adventurers Guild in the Mergshield Nation, captured Darsha, and handed her over to High Priest Gordon.
Up until his battle against Vandalu, Hines had found peace with it, that it was something that could not be helped, or at least told himself that he had found peace with it. But even for a Dampier, Vandalu's appearance and the way he fought had been too grotesque, and he possessed enough strength to overwhelm Hines and his companions. Hines had witnessed it all.
Learning from Mill that Vandalu possessed a repulsive ability to devour souls that surpassed Gujarani's, and having been defeated by Vandalu in battle, his justifications for his actions in the past had broken down.
He and his companions were the ones who had created the circumstances that had given birth to a being that the gods referred to as the Demon King. He was painfully aware that everything he had said to Vandalu during the battle had come back to haunt him. The fate of the Mergshield Nation's expedition army and his former companion, the Green Wind Spear Riley, and the events that had occurred in the Hartner and Sauron duchies, Hines bore responsibility for all of these. But that was only true if everyone, including Hines, could have predicted these outcomes.
Hines, you are mistaken.
Said Mill for a third time.
Even if you had not accepted Earl Thomas Palpapic's request through the Adventurers Guild, eventually, another adventurer or one of St. Gordon's apprentices would have captured the Dark Elf, and she would still have been executed.
At the time of the incident, Darsha was a D-class adventurer at most. From the moment it was known that she was hiding near the town of Evbegia, it was inevitable that she would be captured, whether Hines had accepted the request to capture her or not. And in the end, Vandalu would have still aspired to take revenge. The only difference would have been that the 5 colored blades would not be the target of that revenge. Even so, if I had taken steps to save her, and the baby Vandalu, Hines began, believing that this would have changed the outcome of events. But this time, it was Mill who cut his words off.
That would have been impossible,
she said. At the time, Hines had reached B-class despite his youth, but that didn't change the fact that he was nothing more than a mere adventurer.
If he had tried to help Darsha and Vandalu escape, it would have resulted in him crossing swords with High Priest Gordon, and there was a significant chance that he would have been defeated.
And would it be possible to decide to go against the law of the nation that one was raised in and the teachings of one's God, throw away all of one's own past achievements and bear the dishonor of being a criminal? It was doubtful that the 5 colored blades, Hines, Deliza, Edgar, and the now-deceased Martina, would have been capable of doing that back then.
At the very least, it was certain that persuading Riley to do so would have failed. I know that.
I am not conceited enough to believe that everything would have been possible for me. But I bear the responsibility for bringing about the events that caused Vandalu to become the Demon King, said Hines.
I can no longer deny that. I can no longer keep fooling myself into thinking otherwise.
The story known to the public in the Orbom Kingdom was that Hines and his companions had gone as far as to sneak into the country in order to leave the Amid Empire after having a change of heart, as a result of witnessing the mother of a Dampier being burned at the stake.
The fact that Hines himself was the one who had captured the woman was not publicly known.
This was not something that Hines had intended, but it was a fact that he felt hesitant to make the truth public.
This truth was something that had been left in the records of the Adventurers Guild in the Mergshield Nation. So, although it was a secret, it was known in the Orbom Kingdom among those who possessed information networks and those close to such individuals.
However, Hines was beginning to feel like he couldn't bear that. And what exactly is she? What exactly has she become? I thought that my memories were in disorder because of the damage to my soul. but no matter how many times I think back, I remember it clearly in the same way.
The person who told me and Deliza that she will not forgive us, Darsha.
It was Vandalu's mother, the one we captured, the one who was burned at the stake, said Heinz. Heinz remembered that immediately after the battle against Vandalu, when he was in a so lonely state, Darsha had appeared and scattered him and Deliza with a swing of her staff. The dead could not be resurrected. This fact contradicted his memories, causing Heinz to question his memories, and then in the next moment, he began to wonder whether Vandalu had turned even his own mother into an undead. But that divine presence, I cannot believe that she was an undead.
It was as if she had become a goddess. Is she not a familiar spirit, no, a subordinate god of Vita? If she will not forgive me then, that must also be Vita's will.
If that's the case, then Darsha's appearance had not been that of an undead. In fact, Heinz even believed that she had become a familiar spirit or subordinate god of Vita. But if that was the case, Heinz's actions in the name of Alda's peaceful faction, with the thought of coexistence between Vita's races and humans, what had it all been for? Heinz's mind suffered from his self-condemnation and self-denial. Sensing this, Mill decided to remove his sense of self-condemnation by telling him a fact that would surprise Heinz.
Heinz, that dark elf Darsha has not become a familiar spirit or subordinate god of Vita. She has returned to life. It is most likely that her resurrection was Vandalu's doing.
She said, "Return to life, that's the resurrection of the dead that is impossible even for the gods, isn't it?" Heinz exclaimed. Even gods who possessed immense power could not turn the dead back into the living.
They could allow the ascension of the dead to become familiar spirits, heroic spirits, or subordinate gods, but that did not change the fact of their deaths, in the sense that they would never return to the mortal world again.
This was what was widely known. The fact that Vita had been unable to bring the champion Zakert back to life made this clear.
Yes, it is impossible for us gods. Even for my lord Alda and even for Vita. However, it is possible with the relics of the champion Zakert and Vandalu's power.
Said Mill. Alda, the god of law and fate, remembered the root of life that Zakert had created. He knew that Vandalu had likely acquired it and brought Darsha back to life.
But she has not merely been resurrected. She has become an incarnation of Vita.
Said Mill. Vita's incarnation? Now that you mention it, before we entered the dungeon, we heard that there are whispered rumors that Vita has been resurrected, but to think that Darsha has become her incarnation. Heinz had entered Alda's dungeon immediately after Vandalu conquered the trial of Zakert, but around that time, a merchant visiting the base he had created in the Devil's Nest had spoken of such rumors.
But doesn't that mean that the situation is even more serious? Heinz asked.
Indeed. My followers, Diana and Jennifer, are already aware of this. All of the 5 colored blades have acquired the Vita's mortal enemy title.
Mill told him. Heinz was aghast upon learning that a goddess considered him her mortal enemy.
Heinz, moving forward, you must continue to learn truths that will surprise you. These truths are knowledge that would ordinarily be too much for mortals to know, but you must know them, as you bear the task of stopping the demon King Vandalu and saving the world.
Mill continued.
To begin with, Vandalu's origins lie in the distant past, long before he became Vandalu. Back when he was known as Zakert, Ark, Sodder, and Hillwillow.
She said, after leaving the Commerce Guild, Vandalu and Darsha made preparations to open their food cart right away.
Your Majesty, are you not going a little too far?
Questioned Princess Levia.
Yeah, you don't need to go that far to blend in.
Said Orbia.
I understand what you're trying to say, but I need to blend in to some extent.
Said Vandalu. He was carrying a bundle of charcoal, the fuel that would be used to grill his skewers.
Firewood is cheaper, but the food cart structure is not suited to using large pieces of firewood for fire, so I suppose it cannot be helped.
Princess Levia said sadly.
That's not what I'm talking about. If you're going to cook with fire, you can just use Levia and the other fire attribute dead spirits. How can you go out of your way to buy charcoal? You should consider Levia's feelings.
Orbia said angrily.
It's fine, Orbia.
Princess Levia said in a pained voice with tears in her eyes.
If His Majesty insists that charcoal flames are better than me, then I.
Vandeleu felt as if he'd cheated on her, even though he was simply trying to disguise his food cart.
You know, when I actually cook the meat at my food cart, I'm going to ask Princess Levia to do it.
Vandeleu said.
What, really?
Said Princess Levia.
Yes. Controlling the heat of charcoal fire is difficult after all. If I ask Princess Levia to do it, the fire can be controlled freely.
Princess Levia was a Satan Prometheus ghost, a fire attribute dead spirit.
She was capable of controlling the heat of her flames, from temperatures that could melt iron to the temperature of lukewarm water. On top of that, the only cost of using her flames was Vandeleu's mana, unlike charcoal, which was more expensive than firewood.
Vandeleu wasn't obsessed enough with charcoal to choose it over Princess Levia's flames.
So why did you buy charcoal then?
Princess Levia asked.
For camouflage, of course.
Said Vandeleu.
If I don't buy charcoal or firewood, people will look at me suspiciously and wonder what I'm using for fuel, and the Commerce Guild might think that I've forged my ledger.
Said Vandeleu.
Many food cart owners in the city used firewood or charcoal as fuel. There were some who had introduced magic items, such as magical stoves that used mana as fuel to emit heat, but these were in the minority. Though magical stoves were considered to be low class, they were still magical items. It required courage for a food cart business to make such a purchase. And the magic stones that the magical stoves used as fuel were even more expensive than firewood and charcoal.
That's why I'm buying charcoal, but I'm hoping to ask Princess Levia to provide the actual fire.
Said Vandeleu.
Is that so? Oh my, I was certain that, if that's the case, then you should have said so to begin with.
Said Princess Levia, her mood improving again instantly.
Invisible to anyone but Vandeleu and Darsha, she wrapped herself around him as if embracing him. The other ghosts seemed to be a little jealous after seeing this.
Cooking needs water, right?
Said Orbia.
I wonder when you're going to use lightning.
Kimberly sighed.
Well, I'm an advisor.
Said Chipperas.
Vandeleu, you should have explained things to Leviathan before buying the charcoal. Let's do better next time.
Said Darsha.
Yes, Mom.
Said Vandeleu.
By the way, what about the real estate agent?
There's no problem with that. There's just one single family home with a basement on 4th East Street that can be moved into right away.
Said Darsha. She had met with a real estate agent introduced to her by the Commerce Guild to investigate whether there were any houses that met Vandeleu's requirements.
There's a 2nd floor, and we can move in as long as we clean it. If we're renting, it's 500 baums a month, and it's 10,000 to buy it.
Darsha said.
It's strangely cheap. Even considering that it's cheap for the entertainment district and slum quarter, that's less than a third of the market value that I was told.
Said Vandeleu.
Perhaps the previous tenants were murdered, or perhaps the real estate agent is in desperate need of immediate funds.
Chipperas speculated.
Or perhaps he has an ulterior motive related to Darsha-sama.
Chippera-san, the real estate agent, is a woman, so it's all right. There's nothing strange about her.
Said Darsha.
But it has a history of tenants dying of disease within a year after moving in.
Oh, I see. I apologize for my impolite words.
Said Chipperas.
Well then, let's go and buy it.
Said Vandeleu.
The entertainment district was largely the same as usual that day. Despite having been a ghost town in the early hours of the morning, people came to life as the sun set. Men and women called out to customers on the streets. Visitors wandered about looking for something to catch their interest, and food carts filled people's stomachs. Of course, even in the entertainment district, there were stores that offered food and fancy bars.
But these were generally expensive, and the food cart's customer base was largely made up of the many people who worked there, and the customers who wanted to enjoy themselves but did not have many spare funds.
Food cart owners, using relatively high-class ingredients, were enthusiastically calling out to customers at the entrance to the entertainment district.
We have orc meat skewers. Hey mister, how about getting some energy before you go out to play?
We have meat, fish, and vegetables. Come and get your hearty sandwiches here.
Inside the entertainment district, past the entrance, there were food carts scattered in rows, selling low-cost food catered for the district's workers.
3 servings of meatballs, here you are. As always, come and return your bowls afterwards.
Here's your sandwich, sorry for the wait.
And in the alley that connected the entertainment district to the slum quarter, away from the roads, were the food carts that the inhabitants of the slums came to, the ones that had terrible food but were dirt cheap. Hard bread was among the higher quality of the food sold at these food carts, and there was also soup containing mysterious meatballs, ones containing goblin and kobold ears, acquired almost for free from the Adventurers Guild, that had them stockpiled from adventurers bringing them in as proof of exterminating monsters, and unsold meat left over from other food carts.
If someone ever came up with the idea of adding egg or breadcrumbs to the meatballs, they would become patties, however. Perhaps patties in this world would originate from meatball soups sold at food carts in a slum quarter.
Though they were unlikely to become popular as long as they contained goblin and kobold ears. The owners of such food carts did not promote their businesses. They did their business in whispers with their gloomy customers that came from the slum quarter. Being amongst these food carts, Vandelu's food cart, which was located in an alley between the pub brothel Seven-Colored Mist and the Evening Mug that offered dancing women, stood out.
Would you like some grilled skewers?
Said Vandelu, calling out to potential customers.
Not only was he calling out to customers, but the food cart itself was clean, and it was decorated with a heart that was the symbol of Vita, the goddess of life and love. The entire food cart seemed to be floating above the somewhat gloomy atmosphere of the back alley.
They're very delicious, you know,
said Darsha.
She herself was also floating above the back alley's atmosphere.
Her expression and her voice were simply too bright. Even hoodlums that would normally be pickpocketing or mugging people wandering into the alley were surrounding the food cart at a distance.
Chipperaz's face was twisted in anger at these circumstances that were clearly unfavorable for sales.
Vandelu-sama, I believe it is not too late to go and throttle that man named Joseph.
He said. His anger was understandable.
The customers of food carts in this place were largely inhabitants of the slum quarter. People going to enjoy themselves in the entertainment district would not wander here even by accident. And those who lived in the slum quarter did not have any spare money. In other words, one would not sell anything to them unless they offered very low prices.
But the meat that Vandelu had acquired from a butcher for the grilled skewers sold at his food cart was cheap. But ordinary meat, the meat of rank 1 monsters such as giant rats and horned rabbits, which could be harvested in large quantities.
Naturally, this meat was far more expensive than goblin and kobold ears that could be acquired almost for free.
At this rate, our skewers will not sell, and we will be considered to have failed in 3 months' time. As the guild master and other deputy guild masters are not present, we must have him change our location even if it means strangling him.
Chipperaz insisted.
Even if we are in the entertainment district, we must at least be on the main street.
It's all right. It gives me time to prepare mentally, so it's actually perfect. I'm experienced at cooking, but it's my first time running a food cart after all.
Said Vandelu as he grilled his skewers skillfully, causing a hunger-stimulating aroma to spread.
Chippera-san, you don't need to worry so much. The skewers smell very good, so hungry people will come to buy them soon enough.
Said Darsha.
It is true that we are more expensive than other food carts, though.
The slum quarter-style meatball soup was 5 baums per bowl. The food carts refunded 3 baums with the return of the bowl that the soup was provided in, so essentially only 2 baums. The slum quarter-style sandwiches, consisting of leftover meat and vegetable scraps stir-fried and put between 2 pieces of hard brown bread, cost 2 baums each. Both options were quite filling. They were enough for all but the biggest eaters. but the skewers of Vandelu's food cart were 5 baums each. Each regular barbecue-sized skewer had 4 or 5 pieces of appropriately sized grilled meat. But one skewer might be a little lacking to be considered a meal.
The sauce is handmade after all. We definitely don't lose when it comes to flavor,
said Darsha. Vandelu did not use particularly high-quality meat, but he was very particular about the sauce that he applied to the meat before grilling it. The minced herbs and fruits used, combined with Vandelu's advanced cooking skill, resulted in quite the high-quality sauce.
It was likely to be popular even in restaurants on the main street, never mind a food cart in a back alley.
And I'm using herbs and fruits grown inside my own body with the effects of the plant binding technique skill that I gained with the treecaster job, so I don't have to write any cost for the sauce's ingredients on the ledger,
said Vandelu.
Indeed, the ingredients for the sauces were free. In the event that the Commerce Guild were to ask Vandelu about the sauce, he intended to assert that he had made it by gathering the herbs and blending them himself. There were no easily identifiable spices in the sauce, and even if they investigated the entirety of Morksey, they wouldn't find any evidence of Vandelu purchasing ingredients for his sauce, so they would not be able to deny this claim.
I see. Things may become troublesome afterwards if we threaten Joseph, so if you insist.
Chipperas mumbled with a nod, falling silent. Through Chipperas' transparent form, Vandelu and Darsha saw a man with a wild-looking face and his hair swept back, leading a group of undesirable-looking men approaching.
The thugs formed a threatening half-circle around the food cart.
Is this the new food cart? Hey, who gave you permission to set up shop here?
One of them demanded.
This city's controlled by the starving wolf Michaelaniki. If you want to do business here, you gotta pay up,
said another.
It seemed that they had come to demand what was known as a space rent. Not wanting to get involved, the slum quarter people who had been watching the food cart from a distance stepped even further away.
I see. Give me a moment, please. My hands are busy right now,
said Vandelu.
Naturally, he wasn't scared by such threats. The thugs were incapable of harming him or Darsha, no matter how hard they tried, after all.
The hell did you say, brat?
One of the thugs spat.
You cheeky shit, you know. We don't mind taking that Nichan over there in place of your space rent,
said another.
We'd definitely like to do that,
said a third thug, giving a lecherous gaze towards Darsha, unable to hide his inner desires.
Well, I wonder what I should do,
said Darsha. She looked up at the man with the swept-back hair, who was standing in silence with his arms crossed, the starving wolf Michael.
Michael's mouth twitched a little, and he unfolded his arms.
Get back to your patrols, you lot. I have something to discuss with this brat,
he said to the thugs.
And no way, Michaelaniki.
One of the thugs pleaded.
You're going to have a nice woman like this all to yourself.
Another complained.
If you have the time to be saying such stupid shit, hurry up and get back to your patrols, or do you want me to kill you with my bare hands?
He shouted, sounding far more menacing than the thugs' earlier threats to Vandelu and Darsha.
The thugs gave small, terrified screams and ran away back towards the main road. Everyone else in the back alley trembled in fear and fled, and the only ones left were the owners of the food carts. Seeing the now empty alley, Vandelu let out a sigh.
You're disturbing the other food cart's business, Miles,
he said.
Oh, darn sorry about that. I panicked and thought you'd massacre them all, so I went too far, boss,
said Michael. This was the man who had become the boss of Morksey's underworld less than a month after making an appearance in it. The starving wolf, Michael, or rather, the abyssal noble-born vampire Miles who had infiltrated the underworld under that alias. Name, Miles Rouge. Age, several hundred years old. Title, Kisser Starving Wolf. Rank, 11s. Race, abyssal noble-born vampire marquis. Level, 20. Job, Dark Knight Fighter. Job level, 91.
Job history, apprentice thief, mage, fire attribute mage, unarmed fighter, magic fighter, clawed-fanged warrior, assassin, dark fighter.
Passive skills. Dark vision. Monstrous strength, level 2, awaken from superhuman strength. Rapid regeneration, level 9. Status effect resistance, level 5. Mental corruption, level 1.
Enhanced physical ability, claws, fangs, level 10, level up.
Strengthened attack power while unarmed, very large, level up.
Detect presence, level 3, level up. Mana enlargement, level 2, level up.
Self-enhancement, guidance, level 3, new. Active skills. Bloodworks, level 3, level up. High-speed flight, level 9, level up. Transcend limits, level 3, level up. Trap, level 4.
Silent steps, level 6.
Dagger technique, level 4, level up. Unarmed fighting technique, level 10, level up. No attribute magic, level 1. Fire attribute magic, level 6. Mana control, level 3, level up. Magic fighting technique, level 4, level up.
Chant revocation, level 2, level up.
Assassination technique, level 4, level up.
Armor technique, level 1's new.
Beast transformation, level 1, new. Unique skills.
Warning.
Black, 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 Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, S divine protection, new. Dalyu.